Alright, well, last episode was kind of a bust. I think I need something a lot more calming to soothe my nerves. Ah, that'll do. This is Dragonshy. The episode starts with Fluttershy feeding all her animal friends, assuming she has the right food for every single species. Hey, Fluttershy, you have the correct food needed for my Patagonian mara, right?
Not too fast now, Angel Bunny. You don't want to get a tummy ache.
I'm guessing this guy is running for worst MLP character because, spoiler alert, his defining trait is being a spoiled brat to Fluttershy. Thankfully, he plays an incredibly small part in this episode, so don't worry about him too much. At least not yet. He then signals to Fluttershy about a giant plume of smoke overhead, and goes to warn some ponies nearby, but they all seem to be too busy bouncing around some balls to look above and see the smoke until Twilight spells it out for them. I'm surprised they were able to see the Ursa outside without somebody telling them in the last episode.
I've just received a letter from Princess Celestia informing me that it is not coming from a fire. It's coming from a dragon.
Oh, thank heavens it isn't a fire that can be taken out with relative ease. It's just a dragon that can effortlessly destroy an entire city without even meaning to. And we're not talking about those kind that you want to squeeze like a plushie like Spike, for example. We're talking Skyrim levels of dragons. But wait. If Princess Celestia is the one who found out about the fact that this is from a dragon, how come she doesn't take care of it herself? I mean, she had the power to send her sister to the freaking moon, so why not deal with the dragon in a similar fashion? We don't have to mess with planetary objects again or anything like that. Just put it in the timeout corner and have it think about what it did. It'd be like an episode of Super Nanny Dragon Edition. So while Celestia is being a lazy bum and not doing jack about the dragon, the main six are instead set on a mission to convince the dragon to stop snoring smoke near Ponyville, or else Equestria will be covered in smoke for the next 100 years. Something about this possible outcome adds a lot to the story. It gives a feeling of urgency to not fail in this task. But we all know they will anyway, because if they don't, then this would be a really short series. Then a roll call of sorts plays of all the main six preparing themselves in a fashion that wouldn't be out of place in an 80s Saturday morning cartoon.
Mastodon!
Pterodactyl!
Triceratops!
Saber-tooth tiger!
Tyrannosaurus!
Fluttershy obviously doesn't want to take the task, but Twilight states her abilities with taming animals will come in handy. This is a very small detail thrown in, but very important to the story. It gives a reasonable explanation for why she's thrown into this scenario, and also ties in with the beginning with feeding the animals. It's also mentioned that Spike is going to take care of her animals, which isn't as important. It's just there to have Spike seem more like a punching bag than a fleshed out character. But that would never become a running theme, right? Right? Hello? Rainbow Dash then mentions to Twilight how it might not be such a good idea to bring Fluttershy along due to her literally being afraid of her own shadow. But here's the thing. Fluttershy being afraid isn't that irrational compared to just being socially anxious. Having to tackle a problem as big as a dragon would seem pretty intimidating to anyone. If I were told to take care of a situation which, in failing to do so, would cause the destruction of my own city, yeah, I would feel kind of stressed out. If anything, it seems a bit irrational that the rest of the main six are so amped up and ready to take on this challenge. So the group start to climb the mountain, and that doesn't seem physically possible.
Welcome to my cave, Rarity. Care for a diamond? Roar!
Girls, this is no laughing matter.
Wow, only 20 seconds into the trip and you're already being a party pooper. I think we need to have a veto over you being the leader. As shown before, Fluttershy is afraid to go up the mountain.
It's so high.
Well, it is a mountain.
With the group's impatience growing, they come across a gap that they have to jump across.
But it's so wide.
Well, it is a chasm. Chasm? Forget it.
There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump. See?
Wait, if this is a...
It's not very far. Just move your little...
No more pointless songs.
A hop, skip...
Just don't look down.
Just kidding, the chasm was only 2 feet freaking wide. Then they passed through an avalanche zone. Yeah, you heard me right, avalanches. Those things that kill 150 people each year. Fluttershy ends up screaming so loud that it triggers the avalanche, causing the main six to have to dodge incoming rocks. But something about this scene doesn't sit right with me. Don't get me wrong, it's very exhilarating and great to see in a show like this, but instead of Fluttershy causing the avalanche because of a leaf landing on her, have the avalanche trigger out of nowhere and have Fluttershy be so scared she can't even move, so one of the other ponies has to save her. It still fits with the motif of Fluttershy getting scared, and adds just as much tension as before. And we'd see how Fluttershy escapes as well, cause in the actual episode, we never see how most of the ponies get out of the avalanche, aside from Twilight, who's saved by Applejack. Really? Again?
This is why a girl always packs extra accessories. Oh, please tell me I brought the tiara that goes with this.
Think we got bigger problems than making sure our hair bows match our horseshoes.
See everyone? This is why I like Rainbow Dash and not Rarity. After climbing the leftover rubble, they finally make it to the dragon's cave, but Fluttershy explains why she doesn't want to go inside. You know, aside from literally every single reason.
I'm scared of dragons.
Which I'm pretty sure is something we already kinda established. Besides, don't you already have dangerous animals like bears? They're not scary to you?
Yes, because they're not dragons.
Alright, I guess those can be tamed. Then what about the wild manticore you encountered in the Everfree Forest a couple episodes ago? That kind of stuff is just nothing to you?
Yes, because he wasn't a dragon.
Okay, fair enough. You're only scared of dragons, that makes sense. Then how come one of your best friends is a dragon? Spike isn't the least bit intimidating to you?
Yes, because he's not a huge, gigantic, terrifying, enormous, teeth-gnashing, sharp scale-having, horn-wearing, smoke-snoring, could-eat a pony in one bite, totally all grown-up dragon.
Just let me complain a little this episode, sheesh. With Fluttershy out of the picture, Twilight goes in unprotected and unguarded, such friends you guys are for leaving her all alone like that, and confronts the dragon and tries to entice him to sleep elsewhere, which doesn't work. Then Rarity heads inside to try and seduce him, I guess? Which doesn't work. Pinkie then walks in with a ridiculous outfit, which really doesn't work. And I guess the writers couldn't find a way to throw Applejack into the scene because Rainbow Dash charges in guns a-blazing and kicks the dragon in the face. Which gets the dragon pissed and rolls a pretty good strike. And Fluttershy, who was hiding behind a rock for no particular reason, gets ultra pissed!
Listen here, mister. Just because you're big doesn't mean you get to be a bully. You may have huge teeth and sharp scales and snore, smoke, and breathe fire, but you do not, I repeat, you do not hurt my friends!
You know, while it may not look like it at first glance, this is actually pretty significant in Fluttershy's character. Just think about it. The entire episode she was completely petrified to even get close to this thing, and now she puts that all aside just to defend her friends. And while it does show her stepping towards not being a bystander, it's also setting a good example for kids, especially in this generation. We've seen all the time on the internet when someone is getting bullied mercilessly, everyone around them just stands there doing nothing, and even taking videos of it. This teaches today's youth to not let bad things happen and actually try to stop it, which is something I must applaud to the writers and producers for working into the storyline. Something else interesting I noticed was that Fluttershy acts aggressively at first, but then acts a lot more like her normal kind self. This, I feel, serves as a moral for parents that may be watching this as well with their children. Now let me explain. A main part of the production for this show that many people seem to forget is that, yes, it is aimed mainly for young children, but it also focuses to make the show enjoyable for all ages, including the parents watching alongside their children. And I think this is a great example of that notion. During the production of this review, I was at the movie theater with my parents, and as we were leaving, I noticed a mother yelling at her son, standing a few feet away from him at the checkout stand. I didn't catch why she was yelling at him, but that's all she did from what I saw. All she did was yell and yell, never getting close and personal with her son, and trying to reason with him calmly. And this is a thing I imagine many parents overlook. You can't discipline your children overly harshly, but you also can't be too passive about your punishments, or else they won't get the point across effectively. Be a bit aggressive with them at first so they know you're being serious, then later on cool down and be kind with your child. And it really is admirable to see lessons for the adults as well as the kids. Or this all could have been accidental and I'm just the only one that realized it. Reluctantly, the dragon agrees and leaves the mountain and the smoke is cleared away. Unlike the smoke I'm having to deal with in the Pacific Northwest. Twilight then sends a letter to Celestia telling about the dragon's departure, and how you should never lose faith in your friends, which, to be honest, is a kind of weak moral. But the hidden morals, as I like to call them, were fantastic in their own right, so I can forgive this. And the episode ends with every pony fainting like goats. Apparently the writers forgot 2006 is over. And that was Dragonshy. In similar fashion with last episode, most people think this is the first really good episode of the show, and often the one that makes people become bronies. And while I do agree this was the first big step in the series in terms of quality, there are some minor points that did hamper the episode ever so slightly. First, the main six besides Fluttershy and perhaps Twilight were way too eager to take on this mission, which seemed a bit unrealistic to me. Second, the avalanche scene, which pretty exhilarating, I believe could have been improved with some minor tweaks. And finally, the main moral was somewhat weak, as well as the humor being kinda hit or miss. Now the hidden morals on the other hand were fantastic. Seeing as how both parents and their children can learn extremely valuable lessons at the end shows the potential this show can have for being educational. They're very subtle and not shoved in the viewer's face, yet at the same time makes the viewer think about how they could improve their behavior and actions, not to mention how the story immediately grips you in with its premise. And the story was well structured. It got straight to the point on what the group's goal was and made a very fun story with a lot of action. The positives most certainly outweigh the minute negatives this episode had. With that said, Dragonshy receives an 8 out of 10, gaining a fantastic rating. If you're a newbie to My Little Pony, I'd say this episode wouldn't be a bad place to start. It's full of great action with an engaging story and an overall fun feel to it. This is JoCoBrony signing off.
It's so steep. Well, it is a cliff.